Hey, what's up, guys? All right, so got the Underworld Arms Staccato P single port compensator. It's called the Cyclops, and we are going to put that on the Staccato P X-Series that I have. So this is it. Right, nice finish, almost a identical, almost identical to the that sort of real dark blackish gray that's on the Staccato. So we'll get it here real quick. Okay. Oh, and we have the just so I can model these. I finally put them on. Cry G4. I really like the Velcro behind the knee deal. I like to have my pants sort of fitted around the lower. I don't like big baggy bell bottoms and shit. So anyway, so this thing, boom, will go on here. You do not need a threaded barrel. There are two. You have a this little piece that fits into the slot on the lower rail, and then you slide this on. I guess I can't show it or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just push pause and then put this on, and then I'll come back. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to put this on. I'm going to show you what this looks like, how you can upgrade basically your Staccato P to an XC, the poor man's way to do it. Instead of paying the $4,500 for the XC, you pay the $3,000 for the P X Series with the X Series notch or cutaway window cuts in the slide, right? And then you pay $150 for this thing, right? And so then you have a for $3,150 tax, whatever. You have an XC essentially, right? So let me see if I can pause this thing. I'm not sure if this thing does pause. Nope. I might have to just.
And the guys at
all right, guys,
I'm back. A lot of attention to detail, so you.
Okay, that was simple enough. Yeah, we're back. We're rolling. So it took about 10 seconds to put on. Super simple. As you can see, got the single port comp on top. So for anybody who's new to guns or doesn't understand how a compensator works, what happens is when you fire a gun, the gases, as they are exiting the barrel, if you have a compensator, what happens is the gases come out, and naturally, like, water seeks the path of least resistance. Well, so does, burning hot gases traveling at, Mach speed. So those gases come out and exit out of the top of the compensator. And what that does is it helps the natural, when you shoot, your gun the recoil wants to lift your pistol. And so what you're doing is, by having a compensator, that the gases exit out of the top and it sort of holds the pistol on target. And so it's much flatter shooting. It's like more like don't. Doesn't take the, doesn't, and then you have to sort of find your target. So it really improves speed and just manageability, essentially. But it's looks very nice. It looks almost like it was, I'm sure, like anybody who's familiar with Staccato platform, it's a damn close, looks awfully close to a Staccato. And, from the, sort of the reviews, the test reviews out at the range that I've seen, I'm going to, put this thing through the review process myself pretty soon here. But from what I've heard, that, with somebody testing a P with a Underworld's ARM single point Cyclops compensator compared to an XC, it's virtually no difference, right? So I'm pretty stoked on that. I'm really glad somebody made that. And I was able to turn this bad boy into a big fatty, right? Okay. And it has no problem. My super magnets have no problem holding it to the wall, which is good news. Okay. So, we're going to start talking about these confirmation hearings with, Trump's cabinet picks. This week, it started off with Pete Hegseth. There were anonymous charges, the straight out of the Democratic Party's playbook, Brett Kavanaugh playbook, Clarence Thomas playbook, when a strong, very conservative male is nominated to any position, outcome the anonymous sexual assault charges from 30 years ago, and no proof, nobody, it was never reported at the time, and it's just like, it's become absolutely like predictable, pretty ridiculous. But with Pete also, is sort of guilty of being like a young man. I mean, he's I'm 53, so I have to, when I look at Pete, I have to remember, like, he's in his 30s, and when I was in my 30s, I was a totally different person. I was like much more selfish and much more promiscuous, much, just much less like faithful. Like, in your older age, like as you become older, you become, at least in my case, as I become more conservative, as I've realized that, like, the sort of that idealism, that sort of perspective that, seeing the best in things, is sort of hardened by the reality of, like, real life. And so, you start to realize, like, things like making punishments for criminals only is going to enable them to do more crime, right? Like, a criminal will take advantage of a light sentence to do more crime because there's no negative consequence. See, I've learned all this stuff really in my addiction. It wasn't until, like, the pain became so great, and the consequences were so great of not changing. I've heard it described like when the pain of not changing is greater than the potential, change of within the unknown. Like, people fear the unknown, but when your reality is so painful that it doesn't even matter what the unknown is because it can't be worse than it is now, that's when you find the willingness to do something different. Other than that, if heroin never you know, if my worst consequences of doing heroin were like being dope sick every once in a while, you know, I probably would still be using it. But like, I realized over, you know, many attempts at trying to quit that like, those potential prison sentences started to look like my entire life, you know. And I'm glad that like when I was in the early 2000s, like drug possession, drug use wasn't looked at as like some sort of like compassionate, oh, he's got a disease. I mean, once I became willing to change, then the compassion came. But until then, they were just like, okay, if you don't want help and you want to keep acting the fool and hurting yourself and hurting others, you know, then we'll gladly help you, you know. Like, we'll absolutely provide consequences that will completely destroy your life and destroy your happiness and whatnot. So, anyway, I don't know where I was. Pete. So apparently, like, he went on a trip with like other conservatives. They were at a hotel. He was in between sort of wife number 2 and wife number 3, and he met this girl apparently, and I guess there was some sort of sexual relationship that happened that night. Now, the way that this event is described was that like it was completely consensual, and I really like read through this a while back, and it's absolutely a bullshit story. Like, this girl was this woman was with her husband at the time, and so he went to like try to find her and couldn't find her, and she wound up going back to her room at like 6 in the morning, and her husband was waiting for her. And so then obviously, you know, that's going to cause some major problems, right? Because I'm sure he talked to her friends and she was with some guy, and it wasn't until 3 days later that she decided that she had been raped, right? She had been sexually assaulted, and it wasn't consensual. Now, no charges were ever filed. It was this case, or like, you know, just no evidence at all. But he did sign an NDA, which is you know, a non-disclosure agreement, or a sort of like a hush money payment. Totally legal, but doesn't make you look that great. But the reason you pay him is because if she comes out and she continues with these false allegations in order to cover her own ass for her marriage, Pete's employer, Fox News, would be, you know, more than happy to fire him for something like that. So he's trying to protect his job. You know, he really didn't do anything wrong other than, I guess, cheat on his third wife that he was cheating on with his Who cares? You know, nobody's asking that this guy be like the next pope, or, you know, the next, you know, arbiter of like moral, you know, standards. And when you look at like, you know, Biden choices, you basically, you know, like, you see, you know, transgender dudes who are like showing up at airports and stealing luggage, women's luggage, and getting caught, and then continuing to do it. And you see some real like freaks and some real just like disgusting people that, you know, apparently it didn't affect his job as like being some sort of director of like disposing of or storing like spent radiation fuel, I think it was. What was his name? Sam something. He was the bald dude that with like red. He would have red hair if he didn't shave his head, but so he had the freckles and stuff, and he wore like bright red lipstick, and he wore like red pumps, and he was always like hanging out with that atrocious looking freak, that other transgender dude who was like a surgeon general, or assistant surgeon general, or something like that. He was like, oh, puberty blockers don't have any long-term effects with children. It's like, you know, as if they've ever had any long-term studies done, right? They only started giving kids like puberty blockers, you know, 5 minutes ago, and so of course they never had any long-term studies that indicate that there's like, you know, permanent damage done. Which, like, anybody with half a brain cell knows that when you give somebody a drugs that like suppresses their puberty, it's not going to be good, right? They're going to, grow into adults with like fucked up, hormones and then just, and that's just like from the physiology aspect, not even the mental and the psyche. I've heard people that have taken puberty blockers and they get old and they're like completely embarrassed, or not even embarrassed, but like they're really remorseful that they took them because their voice is, women are like, I'll never have a feminine voice, and dudes are like, I'll never have a deep voice, and my voice, I sound very, feminine. But like, why would a dude who's once thought he was a woman care if he has a feminine voice? Just wild shit. Anyway, so anyway, so Pete, at first when he was appointed, it didn't look like he was going to get through, and then I think like Elon started saying like, if anybody like stands up and wants to be the thorn in the side of Trump, right? And him fulfilling his mandate to be the disruptor president, to be the change agent. We keep hearing that. And so, he's nominating people who are just that, right? And so you have these Democrats who, they're in a sort of a tough position because they show up and their argument is really like, you have no experience managing, millions of people within a company. You've been like, you've run like some sort of like veterans sort of nonprofit, and he's ran a couple little things, but that's the whole point. I think the whole point was that these 4-star generals get us, bogged down in like withdrawals that fail and people die, and then the response to 13, killed Marines because of this not being able to set a perimeter because they withdraw too fast. And so now you put Marines out to sort of create a buffer zone, but now they're right in front of anybody who could walk up with a suicide vest, right? So all these U.S. Marines didn't have the benefit of having like a 50-yard to, 150-yard buffer zone where you would have like, Afghans outside, you could, Taliban or whatever, sort of stopping people and then letting people, whatever. The point is that these sort of like 70-year-old establishment, 4-star generals have done nothing but fail. And so I think the whole point was that Trump was hired because we want somebody to shake things up. And Pete had some questions. He maintained his cool. He was way more respectful than it would have been hard for me to be respectful with some of the things like Tim Kaine was like talking about his like profession or his private life. Like this dude wasn't the friends with the Clintons, right? Bill Clinton, who was just like the biggest scumbag ever. And all of a sudden, Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine. Somehow becomes like all like high and mighty and like this morally superior dude who's pretending to be like he cares about somebody cheating on their wife or whatnot. So that was an eventful hearing. But the point is that he survived, and he survived rather well. Like he came out of that hearing. He can lose 3 votes from the Republican side. And so he's probably going to lose, is it Murkowski? No, yeah, maybe Murkowski. What's his name? The dude oh fuck, who cares? The old dude who's old as dirt, and he'll be talking, all of a sudden he'll just go into a trance, like his brain shorts out. He's so he's so incompetent and just irrelevant at this point that I've forgotten his name. You know what I mean? And yet he's the Speaker of the House or something. I forgot what he is. So actually, what's his name? The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, but I forgot what. God, I hate when I can't remember shit. Anyway, so he did well, and then the next day, Pam Bondi came and she just slayed these fools, dude. Like they tried to Adam Schiff, just such a weak, slack, beta, just pussy. This dude's goes back to would you tell Trump that he lost the election? Just back to the same, January 6th, so dumb. And she's just completely just hammered him. She's like, your state is leading the nation in crime. Didn't you get censored asking questions like this before by Congress? You leaked Kash Patel's investigation, or no, Devin Nunes's investigation to the press. You're just a lame, absolutely dishonest, partisan hack scumbag. And he's, Adam Schiff is just the worst of the worst, right? And so she manhandled him. I mean, she's really smart and really, God, she even did better than Pete, because she wouldn't even commit to either side. Everything she said is I haven't read it. I'll read it. Even this is to both people on the right and left. I'll read it. Let me get back to you. We can sit down. I didn't know that was happening. Very respectful. She doesn't sound like she's going to be playing politics or partisan politics at all. But that was the other thing too. She was saying some really cool things, unlike this administration that targets their opponents, school board parents, and it was just a really interesting thing. Let me see here. I decided I was going to do a video on this, and so as you can see, if you've watched my last video, what you'll notice is that I'm starting to edit in chunks of video and pictures, because I figured out iMovie somewhat. And so what I'm going to do is I want to read something to you guys. Now, I'm going to play some videos of, let me see who I have here. I've got Mazie Hirono. I've got, Kristen Gillibrand. I hate her. But Mazie Hirono, oh God, she's insufferable and so dumb. And there's a new chick Lissa Slotkin. She's a former CIA analyst. So when she first starts asking questions, she wants to bro up to him. We're both we both served, blah, blah, blah. And then she gets into her very partisan, very liberal nonsense and just embarrasses herself, right? But let me read something to you I thought it was really great. It says, the Beltway insiders, the bureaucrats, the lobbyists are being forced to contend with cranks and unqualified rubes because they failed as a ruling class to maintain the public trust and respond to the public demand. As far as I'm concerned, they are getting what they deserve, even if the American people continue getting the shaft from new and different failed policies. The reality is that the people have so little faith in the system that a lot of them probably wouldn't care if Trump threw darts at a phone book to pick nominees, because politicians have frittered away the public trust on one failure after another for decades now. If Republicans are afraid to shoot down Pete Hegseth out of a fear of being primaried by angry Trump voters who have demanded change, that's good. If they're afraid, maybe they'll listen. They should have chosen to start listening to the people a long time ago, before things got so bad, before the public became angry enough to elect an agent of chaos like Donald Trump twice. If they had, they might not be facing the unbridled wrath of an angry populace now. They have little choice now but to accept the people's judgment and to try to weather whatever storms it brings. Whatever is coming, it can't be stopped. Democrats, too, will have their reckoning. The day is coming when they either face their own internal uprising, their own version of Donald Trump, or they are rendered irrelevant for an entire generation, as the Republicans were when FDR came to power. The bottom line is that they are the establishment party in a country where trust in institutions has been in free fall for decades. The identity politics and grievance-based arguments that they have used to divide and distract the people are failing. They are losing minority votes critical to their coalition. A party made up of only affluent urban professionals living in sheltered enclaves and gated communities is not politically viable. Now, when I read that, a party made up of only affluent urban professionals living in sheltered enclaves and gated communities is not politically viable. And then the Pacific Palisades burns to the ground. And you have the Hollywood Hills, burns to the ground. You have Malibu burns to the ground. And so these affluent urban professionals living in sheltered enclaves and gated communities, they're now starting to see how their votes, they're very sort of, they're very sort of insulated from, right? They vote for their candidate that checks the right boxes so they can feel good about themselves and they can be a very progressive liberal, and that illegal immigration will fuck with somebody else in the communities where those illegals hang out, right? Because they're certainly not hanging out in Pacific Palisades. They don't see the consequence. They don't feel the consequences for their actions. It's like how Martha's Vineyard, where President Obama owns like mansions, they were like a sanctuary city. And then all of a sudden, Greg Abbott started, flying illegal immigrants out of the country and started busing them across country to these sanctuary cities, right? Because they voluntarily announced that they were these cities that were so compassionate. Now they were on the other side of the country, up north, and so they never expected that these illegal migrants would actually make it to their cities. And so they could sort of just, benefit from the sort of the optics of being the good guy, of being the morally superior, progressive, enlightened, spiritually connected liberal. And then all of a sudden, illegal immigration became everybody's problem when, conservative Republican governors started saying, okay, let's start spreading the wealth around, and let's start making these financial burdens is what illegal immigration really becomes. Let's start making these burdens for everybody. And the second they did that, there was a bus where 48 migrants showed up at Martha's Vineyard, which is like, it's like this extremely elite community of like millionaires and billionaires. And the first thing that happened when this bus rolls into town with 48 migrants is like they all panicked. They called it a humanitarian crisis. none of these people opened their, 12-bedroom mansions and said, hey, I've got like 8 extra bedrooms. Why don't I take like 4 families and come in, stay with us until we can get things figured out? They instantly, became super concerned about having illegal immigrants in their, their little city or town. And then they found a church where they could sleep in the cafeteria, and the next morning they bust them to New York City, right? And so that's basically like, I mean, I have been watching that for, I've always noticed that, especially after I left the Democratic Party, that's how it always went. Like, Democrats were only sort of compassionate, giving up until it became time to do the work, or to actually, personally sacrifice, not volunteer other people's tax dollars to sort of pay for your, your virtue. And so I just saw that from the very early on. It was just like, these people are so full of shit, and then this just proved it, And so now, with these fires and like the gross mismanagement of, or the gross, mismanagement of funds, because remember, they voted to have all these new reservoirs built over 10 years ago. Not one has even been started. I mean, that's pathetic. But not only that, they couldn't even fix a top so that they could fill the reservoir that's in the Palisades. And I guess they have tops, to keep birds from shitting in the water, and so, right? But that doesn't matter. You can still, if the week before they had like these warnings, like, 100-mile-an-hour winds are coming, and it's like extremely dry. We haven't had rain for, months. Perfect fire conditions. And, like a mayor who's on top of things, a governor who's on top of things would be like, oh shit, you know what? We have been trying to get that top fixed on that reservoir. And so we drain the reservoir, because apparently that water can also be used if it's treated to drink. And so, they just, nobody wants bird shit in any water whatsoever, but they drained the whole thing while they were fixing this top, and it took them like over a year to fix it, and it's still not fixed, right? And so this thing has remained empty for a year, and these fires come every year, so it's not like this wasn't fire season. It's not like we weren't getting close to like, the warnings were out there a week before, which is why everybody's giving Karen Bass shit that, even given these warnings, she still got on a plane and she went over to, be a elitist in Ghana, and, be a very privileged Democrat who's there to, celebrate non-white people in power. Like, everything is very racially motivated with Democrats, liberals, conservatives just we don't give a shit. We've, stopped giving. I'm from a generation that grew up and like we thought racism was over. Like, we all grew up, like, my black friends called me the N-word. We listened to rap. It was like nobody thought about all this shit. And then, about, 15 years ago, all of a sudden it's like, I guess the Rodney King riots were one of those sort of issues that started getting people back into this, like, these racist cops. Anyway, so, where was I? Conservatives or liberals in California are now feeling what the consequences for their votes are. And like I said, it's like when the consequences and the pain become so great from continuing to do this same thing, at some point, the pain becomes so great that you do something different. You try something new. And I think that a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals are going to start trying something new because they've lost everything. And it's not like it's not even like these fires were like it's sort of like a mystery why these fires were so bad and we couldn't get them put out. Like, it's so, like, there was no water. These fire hydrant, like, end of story. At that point, okay, whose job was it to get the water? Well, the mayor, they were supposed to fix a top on a reservoir, and it's still not fixed yet after a year. And so there's no water in it? No. And if you don't have water in the reservoir, then all the other fire hydrants throughout the city don't have pressure, because that's part of the deal. I've learned some, physics of, fire, I guess, fire management, whatever. But, and so that's the deal. Like, there was no water. These reservoirs, they're taking their sweet ass time getting it done. Of course, they've got plenty of money for their Green New Deal projects and their, importation of, tons of illegal immigrants. But to actually do things that help mitigate these raging fires that come every year, you didn't solve the homeless problem, and there's $26 billion that are missing. I mean, how is that possible, right? It's missing. It's not even like, oh, we spend it on dumb things. It's like, oh, we can't find it in our budget. And so homelessness has got worse, and with homelessness comes these sort of accidental fires, apparently, because I guess we're supposed to cut people loose that catch communities on fire, because drug addiction is a illness, and these poor people need to get high and need to stay warm. It's like, or they could get sober, right, and clean their lives up and change. But that's, again, that's like asking when a black person fails to comply with a police officer, and they say put your hands up, and the person puts their hands in their coat and they get shot and get killed. It's never like, the community leaders never look at their community and say, you guys, we need to stop running from cops. We need to start following directions. Like, we're getting ourselves killed. And continuing to not address the problem means that if you don't apply accurate solutions to problems, and instead you blame cops that are like there to try to arrest somebody, and then they have to put them in holds because they're violent and they're, then nothing ever changes, right? And so people continue to keep dying, and at some point somebody's going to have the courage to just say, look, our community needs to change. And somebody within the Palisades voters are going to say, you guys, something's got to change. We need to start changing who we allow to, govern our cities and shit. We need people to actually do fire control management, right? Do controlled burns and clean away dead foliage. Anyway, so let me finish reading this. Whatever damage Trump and his people do out of a lack of qualifications and skill, whatever disasters come out of their haphazard attempts to give the people the change they demand, I will personally lay all of it at the feet of the political establishment that failed to come up with their own solutions and allowed Trump to come to power. It should not have come to this, but it did, and somebody has to answer for it. Blaming the disruptive influences, the outsiders themselves, is a cop-out. Blaming the people is something that shouldn't even be contemplated by politicians in a democratic system. There is no saving this either, no way to restore the people's lost faith in their government except through the crucible of disruption, change, and reform. The only way forward is through. All the establishment can do is but wait for the hammer to fall. To paraphrase the famous Spider-Man line, those who have great power will ultimately bear the most responsibility. History is seldom kind to failed ruling classes. I thought that was really good. So anyway, and so we have a bunch of sort of outsider appointees to the Trump cabinet. You've got Pete Hegseth. It looks like he's going to be confirmed. Pam Bondi is a shoo-in. She's awesome. And everybody says, so I'm going to play some videos once this is done. And then Kash Patel, boy. And if anybody, like, I can only suggest, like, pulling up a couple Kash Patel interviews. Do the Sean Ryan podcast. And he is, talk about a disruptor. They're going to try this shit with him. Like, they're going to confirm him probably within the next week. And he is going to absolutely excoriate Adam Schiff. Because not only is he, like, way smarter, but he's very well spoken, but also, like he's kind of, like, he's like me. Like, if you talk shit, right, and I have and I'm in the right, I'm gonna fucking humiliate you, right? Like, if you talk down to me, or say that, like, will you condemn Trump for saying that he didn't lose the election? I'm gonna be like, yo, like, fucking get over it, dude. Like, we're now, 5 years removed from that, and you're still living in that. You're the guy who said that we had more than circumstantial evidence. Straight up lied to the American people about Russian collusion and right? All you've done is been wrong with your fake investigations and your fake, quid pro quo impeachment hearings. All you've been is humiliated. And you have the audacity to talk to me like I'm, like, Trump's little bitch. Kash Patel's gonna tear these motherfuckers to pieces, dude, and I can't wait. So the fireworks are gonna fly. Anyway, so I think that's about it. This is gonna be a pretty quick video, 42 minutes, quick for me. I did a sort of a unboxing and how it looks on the firearm, a display, if you will. I will do when I get to the gun range, hopefully very soon, I will do I'll do a side-by-side comparison. I have another comped pistol. I have a 6 Hour P365 Spectre comp, which has actually got the comps, the ports actually milled into the slide itself, right? So there's no right, and so all those gases come out of here going 700 miles an hour, and they come out of the first vents they can go, and when they come out of here going real fast, it helps push your gun down, which fights against the muzzle rise, the recoil, right? This is a beautiful little sort of comes from a 6 hours. I guess they have an armory where they produce sort of limited edition runs of their certain guns, right? This is their P365, one of the most popular concealed carry guns in the world because of its very small imprint, right? I mean, compared to the two. I mean, it looks like mommy and daddy, right? Oh yeah, one. but you know, they're still both 9mm. You know, what always sort of trips out people who aren't shooters is that they see a gun like this and they go, oh boy, I bet that's very easy to shoot because it's so small. It's actually the difference. The bigger a gun is, the more, the less violent it is when the round goes off, right? So this is a much more violent, handling than this one. However, because it has the compensator, this actually shoots very flat. I really love this. I love that double port, sort of just like sick. And once I'll show it one more time. This is the there's that light, boom, right there. That's the what is it called? The Underworld Arms, single port, Cyclops, Compensator. I think the color is a dead ringer match, right? Very nice. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Oh shit, you guys. I've got videos, a 2-minute video. I'm gonna put these in. Maisie Hirono. I've got a minute and 3 second, a 2 minute and 30 second, a 50 second, and a minute 20. Oh, and then there's a very really good quote that Victor David Hansen talks about. It's awesome. He says some really incredible shit about incompetent liberals being unable to even be good stewards of Los Angeles, which is a city that was like, it's basically like a engineering marvel. You know how they brought water 200 miles across the desert in order to, and then powered, used water to hydraulic energy or power, right, that you make from hydraulic energy to power their cable car systems. Unbelievable. And then you have all these like different, and with these liberal policies, you know, these geniuses who built this city, to them, to the woke left, they're just like old dead white men, you know, colonizers, and so they, you know, completely destroy a beautiful city because they're just that incompetent. Anyway, so that's it. Again, you guys, thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for any when you guys like and subscribe or whatever, comment. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Being drunk at work, including by people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
Senator, those
Yes
are
or no?
multiple false anonymous reports peddled by NBC
Do you
News
know
that
that
run directly
drinking on the job
contradictory to
is
the dozens of men and women at
not
Fox News
contemplated
Channel
on
who I work with
I'm
who
not
came
hearing
on
the
the
answer
record.
to my question.
And
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign
serving.
as Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf of
job?
the men and women I'm serving.
I'm not
because it's
hearing-
the most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would you
events,
carry
holding
out
a
an
riot
order to
shield on
shoot
behalf of my
protesters
country.
in the legs?
I saw 50
as
Secret
directed
Service agents get injured by
Secretary Esper.
rioters trying to jump over the fence, set
Again,
the church on fire, and destroy
You know
a
what? That
statue.
sounds to me that you will
Chaos.
comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg. Would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal. DoD policy allows service members and eligible dependents to be reimbursed for travel associated with non-covered reproductive health care, including abortions. Will you maintain this common sense policy?
Senator, I've always been personally pro-life. I know President Trump has as well, and we will review all policies. Federal government
I'm not
should be
hearing
funding
answers to my questions,
travel for
Mr.
abortion.
Led an audit of any organization, yes or no? I don't want a long answer, yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or
with the
no,
money
did
that
you
we
lead
had.
an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no,
has
did you lead
been
an audit?
stated
Yes or
has
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
Yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
Yes
of these
or no?
organizations
Yes
has
or
been
no, did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that
to
as a no.
bottom.
What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other
Okay.
than serving in the military. So my job has been
So
to
no, the
lead
answer is,
men
can
and
you
women in
name one of the
combat.
three main ones that the
You're
Secretary
talking
of
about
Defense
defense
signs?
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching
So-
about Status of Forces Agreement.
One man standing in the breach, should President Trump give an illegal order, right? I'm not saying he will, but if he does, you are going to be the guy that he calls to implement this order.
That President Trump is going to be giving illegal orders.
No, I'm not saying he will, but do you believe there is such a thing as an illegal order that Joe Biden or any other president, Donald Trump could give? Is there anything that a commander-in-chief could ask you to do with the uniformed military that would be in violation of the U.S. Constitution?
Senator, anybody of any party
Right.
could give an order that is against the Constitution or against the law.
Right. Okay. Are you saying that you would stand in the breach and push back if you were given an illegal order?
I start by saying I reject the premise that President
I
Trump will
understand.
be giving
You've done your
any
genuflecting
illegal
to him,
orders
but
at all.
This isn't a hypothetical. Was asked and did use uniformed military to clear unarmed protesters. He was given the order to potentially shoot at them. Helos flew low in Washington, D.C. as crowd control. He later apologized publicly for those actions. Was he right or wrong to apologize?
Senator, I was there on the ground.
And
I saw the
understand,
helo
and I
myself.
respect that.
I've been there.
But you're about
understand
to
the
be
level
the
of threat
Secretary of Defense.
that was involved in that moment. I
Was
also
he right
understand
to- so he was- was he-
legality and the
Sir,
Constitution.
was he
and
right
the
or
laws of what
wrong
you
to
have.
apologize?
I'm not going to put words in the mouth of Secretary Esper or
No,
anybody else. from
he
this
said them
podium.
himself. You don't have to. What are you scared of? Did he do the right thing by apologizing?
I'm not scared of anything, Senator.
Then say
I'm
yes or no.
interested
You
in
can say no.
upholding the law.
President Trump said in November that he is willing to consider using the active duty military against the, quote, enemy within. Have you been personally involved in discussions of using the U.S. military active duty inside the United States?
Senator, I'm fine. I'm glad we finally got to the topic of border security equaling national security because it's been abdicated and ignored for the last 4 years.
That wasn't my question. I'm just asking, have you been involved? You're about to be the Secretary of Defense, potentially. Have you been involved in discussions about using the active duty military inside the United States?
Senator, I am not yet the Secretary of Defense.
Right. I'm
If
just asking-
confirmed, I would be party to any number of
So you haven't been in
conversations,
any of these
which I would not
conversations?
reveal what I have discussed with the President of the United States
just
or
have
not.
you been in conversations? Do you support the use of active duty military in supporting detention camps?
Senator, everything we will do would be lawful and under the Constitution,
Okay,
but
I'm
I
gonna take
recognize.
Because they are so hurtful to the men and women who are currently serving in the U.S. military. Please explain these types of statements, because they're brutal and they're mean. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way?
That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the legs. That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland.
Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion.
Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense.
The Attorney General should investigate one of his perceived political enemies. Would you do so?
Senator Hirono, I wish you had met with me. Had you met with me, we could have discussed many things and gotten to know.
I am
You could
listening
have
to you
gotten to
now.
know me.
Could you respond to the question?
Yeah, you were the only one who refused to meet with me, Senator. But what we would have discussed is that it is the job of the Attorney General to
I'm very
follow
happy to listen
the
to
law.
your.
So good, right? Given what we heard yesterday, you didn't meet with me, Mr. Hegseth. You didn't meet with me either, or me either. And now you get this woman. You know, she refused to meet with Pam Bondi.
Yeah, I don't know what they thought they were going to be very schooled and prepped, and Schumer had them all in and said this is an occasion for us to make the argument that Trump is satanic and these people are incompetent. But they really didn't research it. Anybody who knew Pete Hegseth or Pam Bondi or met them or knows them or seen them in action, they're very quick on their feet. They're witty, they're smart, and they're perfect. I mean, they're masters of optics. They've been on television. So just the appearance of her and Pete, the way they handled the questions, the way they answered, didn't they understand what they were doing when they asked these stupid questions?
Senior fellow at the Hoover Institution and author of The End of Everything, How Wars Descend into Annihilation. So, Victor, great to see you. We'll get to, in 1 second, what they're doing to Pam Bondi this morning. She's crushing it. She's doing very, very well. But let me just get your take first on what they tried to do to Pete Hegseth yesterday.
Well, that was a gift. I mean, you would think they'd be quiet given all what's happened, the election and what's going on in Los Angeles, this confederacy of dunces. And yet they never learn. They decide they're going to make a big show, and then they'd embarrass themselves with these crazy questions. And he was calm. He answered the questions. He was funny. They were embarrassed. They got angry. They should never get angry. And it ensured his confirmation. Any Republican senator that would not vote for him is going to be politically dead, because you know what they're going to do. They're going to say, you voted for Pete Buttigieg, you voted for this incompetent Austin, you voted for all these comic characters at Biden, and now you're going to vote against this decorated. It's not. So he's going to be confirmed, and that was good. But it was Kavanaugh redux. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely try to smear him on the woman thing. By the way, we put this together. Tim Kaine was their real attack dog on the women allegations. And, you know, Tim Kaine has found God, because he was the one who was like, women, you cheated. But he was BFFs with Bill Clinton and Doug Emhoff. We put a little bit of that together in a budded soundbite. Look, watch.
Fully investigated and completely cleared.
So you think you are completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared.
Something you said back in, I think, 2002 about former President Bill Clinton, that he should resign if the scandal, the Lewinsky scandal, turned out to be true. Do you still hold true to those words you said back then?
I had some feelings of disappointment back then, but you know, and that's now 20 years old. And when I'm talking to people on the campaign trail, they're not asking me about old controversies. Past controversies aren't that important to me now.
Yeah, I mean, so do you think your feelings have changed?
It was a feeling I had at the time, but now I'm thinking about what do we do to help this country be strong.
Oh, so aw shucks, tweeted out yesterday by Alter Frog on X. Go ahead, Victor.
Well, he used to kind of appears quasi-normal, but now he's gone full Tim Waltz. He looks like Tim Waltz. He acts like Tim Waltz. He's as crazy as Tim Waltz, and he's kind of emblematic of that whole party. It's kind of like they're older people that want to be, I don't know, hip or something. They want to be in the AOC, and these younger people have hijacked their party, destroyed it, and they're kind of deer in the headlights. So they kind of go through the motions of, objecting, but they're silly. And he was another gift to Pete Hegseth.
He did go full Tim Walz. That's exactly right. So then yesterday and today, and the audience probably knows this, but just in case, these nominations, they start in committee. So you have to go before the relevant committee to your position. Like yesterday it was Armed Services. Today, Bondi's in front of Judiciary. And then they will recommend your nomination out to the full Senate floor, or not, but typically, yes, they will. And then the full Senate gets to vote on it. So Blumenthal is on both of those committees because he was there yesterday with Pete. And by the way, once you hit a certain age, gentlemen, this is a pro tip for you. Do not dye your hair black anymore. At a minimum, do the salt and pepper situation. I got no problem with the salt and pepper. Do the salt and pepper. I get it. But do not do all pepper, because it just looks dumb when we know you're in your 70s and your face looks 70s, and that's fine, but stop trying to look like you're a young man of 30 on top of your head. It looks bad. Okay. Dick Blumenthal, no charge for the free advice. He reappears today and is going after Bondi on a similar theme we heard with Pete yesterday, which is Trump is lawless and will be asking everybody in the cabinet to be lawless with him. And will you be the bulwark against him? They went after Pete for that. And now here's Blumenthal going after Pam Bondi, our next potential attorney general, with the same line of questioning in SOT 37.
Can you say no to the President of the United States when he asks you to do something unethical or illegal?
Senator, first, I need to clarify something that you said, that I have to sit up here and say these things. No, I don't. I sit up here and speak the truth. I'm not going to sit up here and say anything that I need to say to get confirmed by this body. I don't have to say anything. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability. And honestly,
let me ask you.
Pretty good. What did you think of it?
Yeah. The subtext or reductionist truth behind that is I have 53 senators and you don't. So I can say whatever I want, and nobody's going to be stupid after what Merrick Garland said and did the last 4 years with lawfare, and he got confirmed by some Republicans. And anybody who objects and agrees with you is going to get primaried, and they know it, and they're not going to vote anywhere near you. And I'm home free, and I can say whatever I want to you. How do you like that? That's what it was. And she's absolutely right. She's not going to play that game. And she should have, I think they're going to get even more emboldened as these go on, because I think the Republican wavering people, there's 2 or 3 of them, are going to look at this and they're going to say, man, I cannot be allied with these nuts. That is political suicide. If I have reservations about Hegseth or I cannot say anything because these people are crazy and I've got to stick with my team. So I think they're all going to get confirmed, and that's going to embolden all of them to go back on the attack like Bondi did and Pete did. So I expect that they'll go after Kash. When they get to Kash Patel, and I know Kash pretty well, it's going to be a lot of fireworks. So I don't think he's going to sit up there and take that.
So he came up in this exchange. I think they were talking about him in a couple of these. All right, so first, there's Senator Whitehouse, who tried to go after on whether it's appropriate for prosecutors to start with a name and look for a crime. And then I'll show you Mazie Hirono, who was like, she was definitely talking about Kash Patel, but watch this with Senator Whitehouse.
It would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years and what's been happening to Donald Trump. They targeted Donald Trump. They went after him, actually starting back in 2016. They targeted his campaign. They have launched countless investigations against him. That will not be the case if I am Attorney General. I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation.
Victor, I'm just sorry, but isn't it so great to hear a nominee who's 2 steps ahead of them? You know, like, I see what you're trying to do, and screw you because you're the ones who did this.
Yeah, it is. And I agree with you. But, you know, I kind of grew up with watching J. William Fulbright and all those guys and Frank Church. I didn't agree with them politically. But these are dunces compared to those guys, those old Democratic stalwart guys that were young during the Truman era, and they came into their own in the 60s and 70s. They were kind of misguided, but they were well-spoken. They were logical. They were professionals. These people are just, I don't know what's happened to the Democratic Party. I don't know if this older generation was suspect to begin with, or when the party was hijacked by the woke people, they had to make the necessary adjustments. But they are an embarrassing lot. They really are. And I mean, to say what he did about finding that old Soviet Berea, give me the man and I'll find you the crime. That's what he was alluding to after what Merrick Garland did without no one. The thing about Merrick Garland, his delegate, this was all coordinated. We know that about Fannie Willis and Bragg and Letitia James and Smith. But in every one of those cases, there was one truism that Donald Trump, if he had said he was not going to run for re-election, none of them would have indicted him, and they will never indict anybody else for those crimes. They're non-existent crimes. They will vanish and evaporate into the atmosphere. No politician will ever be charged with saying that his real estate is somewhat more than they think it is, and therefore he got a loan which he paid back with interest on time to the profit and satisfaction of the lender, and nobody's ever going to be prosecuted for that again. They know it. So she was really good. I thought she was excellent, and I think they're all going to follow.
Up there speaking as what's the information? That's what they want to know.
It's because it's narcissistic. It's all about her, and she understands one thing, Megan. Had she done preparation and talked to all the relevant government officials, had she visited all these places, and if she had mastered the topic and taken 4 or 5 hours and just dropped that stuff that you mentioned, and then extemporaneously without notes, like where you and I are talking, just talked in a convincing, authentic manner, she'd probably be fired. And she knows that. So she thinks to herself, how do I advance using the Latina card and all of this other DEI stuff? And I know that I will never be adjudicated on my actual ability to master the knowledge necessary to make a difference or to remedy the situation. And that's why everybody's angry, because they know that this is not just a sin of commission by all of these pronouns junk. It's a sin of omission. It comes at the expense in this zero-sum game that these people don't know anything. They don't know about reservoirs. They don't know anything about water pressure. They don't know anything how to get people out of a house who's a heavy male. They don't know about the chaparral. They don't care because they feel that was an old, white, stupid generation that built LA, and they're all dead, and they made all of these non-green reservoirs, and they were so into infrastructure and water, but we're beyond all that. So they're kind of like children that inherited this sophisticated desert that exists as a paradise because of all this imported water that was always on the margin of air. Any little air could destroy that whole system. And they had some really brilliant people who built. William Mulholland was a genius that got Colorado water, Owens Valley water, aqueduct water, and created that Henry Huntington came all the way 200 miles away and made the first transmission lines that could convey hydroelectric to run the electric cable cars in LA. They were geniuses that built that city, and now they're relegated to old white stupid guys that are gone. But these people don't have half the ability that generation did, and they know it. And they can't even be custodians of a system that they inherited. It's too complex. They can't figure it out, and they're destroying it. and everybody knows it. And there's a lot of people in LA that do know how to do it. And they do know how LA, because they grew up with it. And they're furious because they're saying, if you had have just taken the system you inherited and stuck to your job and mastered it, my house wouldn't be burned up that is, 70 years old, a historic place in Los Angeles. And I wouldn't have lost all of these furnishings that my grandmother gave me. And we wouldn't have all these looters trying to find safes and things and burned out lots. That's what you did. So